Good evening, everybody. Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 302, and tonight we have Guro Steve. And this is going to be a fun one. We kind of go way back, haven't seen each other. I think we kind of reconnected in New Hampshire and all that. So I'm looking forward to this, talk about some old stories. And plus, we were in same systems. And then our evolution, as far as our journey, also have crossed similar paths. So this is going to be a fun one. So without further ado, I will be bringing up Guro Steve. If you are watching, tell us where you're watching from and smash that like button. Hey there.
Hey, Gordine, how are you, buddy?
So, this is going to be a fun one, man. So, before we get into the nuts and bolts of FMA, first, how you been? How things going?
Good. It's really busy.
Yeah.
Teaching's been great. Having a good time out there. Meeting you again, getting to see all the guys at the symposium. Lots of fun. It's just keeping us hopping out there.
Yeah, things are starting to open back up, and
Oh yeah.
looks like seminars are kicking back in. So hopefully this stays the course, and we don't revisit.
Yeah, the lockout.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I talk to people, and people are starting to use the phrase like pre-COVID. Yeah, pre-COVID. It sounds like it's a whole nother dimension or something. It's like,
It was like a decade ago,
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, well, pre-COVID, we, it's, man. So how are things? So you traveling a lot for work, or
Yeah. It's been a little busy, but it's good because I get out there and hopefully I get to meet people while I'm out there, so I can do some extra training. Generally, if I'm in an area like I was out in California, I looked up some guys I had never met and tried to train with them. When I was traveling out I was just in Cleveland. I didn't get a chance to because I was kind of tied up until about 10:30 at night. But generally, it's been pretty good. I get out maybe once a month or so and get some extra training in as well.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Did you get to meet anybody in California?
Yeah, I met some guys down. They were training in one of the parks down by the Orange County Airport, and so we kind of hung out for a while and did a little stick work out in the park. It was fun. We had a good time. It's nice. Just they were the Stockton mix, the Vision Eskrima guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't even. I was only there for about maybe 40 minutes because I had to get back out to go out to dinner, work dinner, but it was good. I was just happened to be out there and they were training, so I grabbed some stuff and said, "Hey, you mind?" And they're like, "Oh, come on over," And that's always the nice thing about the brotherhood in the FMA world. Everyone wants to train. Yeah. So it's all good.
Yeah. But so before we get in FMA, what is your initial martial arts background? What'd you start out in?
Oh, sure. God, go way back. So when I was really young, probably 10, 11, 12, my dad started training me in boxing and wrestling. He always said, you have to be able to defend yourself. And then my cousins, who were much older than I was back then, we would pad up the room with foam rubber and we would just beat the snot out of each other.
The rubber room.
Yeah, it was pretty much that. My father hated it because he was an upholsterer and we used to steal all his foam cushions and throw each other around. But then I got into karate. It was a hard style karate and probably right around 77, 78. And I stayed there until when I graduated high school, so 82, because I got my first degree black belt, I think it was 81 or so. But it was weird back then. There was no kids. There was no children in class. If I was 14 when I started, I was the youngest person in the class. It was all 18 and above, and we sparred all the time, full contact, I went to school one time and a teacher pulled me aside and said, "Hey, is everything all right at school, at home?" Yeah. And I'm all black and blue, I was getting ready for a black belt test or something.
Well, you got DCF showing up here.
Yeah. And then I'm like, no, this is from karate class, But they actually introduced me to some people that were in Boston. It was one of his students. And he had a little library at the house. And so I was there and he had a Salat book. He had the Indonesian archipelago one from Don Driga.
Yeah.
Classic. And And he said, "Oh yeah, if you ever come back, we do a little bit of arnis." I don't even know what style he practiced because I only went there twice with my instructor.
Okay.
And that was my introduction to kind of stick work and even some other weapons like blades. And then, it took a while, but then probably the late mid 80s, I was starting to practice whatever I could find. And then I met Ralph Sevier down in Texas. Well, he was from Texas, but I met him in New Jersey. And he was teaching art of combat and ninjutsu. And when I had gone down to meet Soke Hatsumi, and then I hooked up with him and his group for a good 8 or 9 years, and started picking up all of his style, as well as he was an Inosanto blend kind of guy too. So he introduced me to a lot of stuff. And again, it was all about, can you make it work? Full contact fighting, put a few pads on, go against a staff or a bokken, whatever you had. And so we were there for a while. Then I started really looking in the Northeast, trying to find people up by me in New Hampshire. And eventually I had met a gentleman who introduced me to Tom Sotis, but it was just prior to that was Greg Allen down I was one of his, what do you want to call it? It was like a distance learning course that he had for a while. And I started, corresponding with him. We would, I purchased videos from him.
One of the first ones, I think, to do
that. Oh yeah. And then,
trendsetter in that regard.
Oh, he was great. He was a little quirky. I learned a lot about him.
Oh, later. I thought it was so much fun.
He was though. He was engaging.
Oh my God! I used to have to go back in a group because I couldn't stop laughing, and I didn't want to be disrespectful, so I would just put myself in the back, and because when he would put the dialect when he was speaking English, and I had to go in the back, man. I couldn't do it.
Oh, he was a great guy,
Oh, he's charismatic. I thought he was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and that kind of opened the door for me to start seeing and exploring. And I started. Then I found Tom Sotis and Steve Perrin and Amok and basically Pakiti Tersha, because I was looking for Leo's material in the States, and there was really no one in the New England area that I could find.
Tom was
the guy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I started training in Amok and Pakiti Tersha with Steve. And I was there for probably 4 or 5 years, traveling down there, back up here, having them up for seminars, just, hitting it hard all the time. And then Leo, Two on Leo and I got introduced that way. So I started talking to him. At that time, he couldn't come back to the States. So we kind of had correspondence back and forth, and he wanted me to help set up the Pakiti Tersha pit bulls. So there was Ed Davidson and myself, who we're pretty hardcore guys. We're like one of the 2 first members, So, and then he started opening that up, and we went on for a few years before. It was just prior to me meeting Two on Sayak. Right around 2000, it was like 1999, 2000, because Tom had mentioned that he had gone down to a seminar in New York with these Sayak guys, and they had blades everywhere.
Interesting. Interesting story on that.
Yes.
The way it goes is, and I Tom shared with me, is that Sayak approached him because when Tom had the Fighters Guild, which transitioned into Amok, he was saying apparently Two on Sayak called them, say, hey, look, I need some help. I'm coming out with a system, knowing that Tom, was doing it. And Tom went to a couple of the early Long Island seminars.
Oh, yeah. Because, and then Raph and those guys introduced, had talked to me about them. And because back then there wasn't a lot of people filming everything, but the Sayaks filmed everything. Yeah. They always had cameras up. And so we were watching videos, and we could see Tom coming in and doing training and coming into seminars. And
it was pretty, because when they went quote unquote public, they did a few in Long Island, and I remembered the late 90s. It wasn't the first one because Tom was at the first one. I want to say I went to the second or third, and I went with a guy who was telling me about it, and it was just overwhelming for me at the time. But it was interesting. It was in Long Island, and over in the corner, I didn't know it then, but over in the corner was Kyre, the Cayenne brothers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was dynamic. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I can still remember the first time, I had been reaching out to on Sayak. They were down at Sama Sama over down in Florida at the time.
And Florida with the father, yeah,
right. And so like they finally came back, and I got a call back, and this was, they had a little single page web page that was up, but there was nothing on it. And he said, hey, why don't you come down to Ben Salem with your family, and we'll train. You get to meet us. So I went down. I had my son and my wife with me. We went down. They spent the day doing stuff, and I went over and trained at his house. And here is, here's this big big guy, like making me do stuff and training, and I was like a complete baby. Like I couldn't.
Oh my God, it was overwhelming.
And it was just like, just like magic at times, And at the same time, the kids were like running around. All the kids were young.
The girls were young.
Yeah, they're like going between my legs. My camera's falling over, and but I was hooked. And I said, hey, I'll why don't I, when I get back, I'll reach out to you. We'll set up a group, and then we'll have you come up. And so we had him.
It's funny. We're gonna backtrack a little bit. Those early days. Like when I had two on Harley Elmore on, like Sayak in the beginning, like he just went down there. It was pretty much like free just to get things going and all that. So I don't know if a lot of people know that. Like,
oh yeah,
so just backtracking. So when you first got into in other words, you were some boxing, some wrestling, traditional martial arts, whatever. And then you got some exposure to signal that, like, what were your initial thoughts just seeing this coming from basically quote unquote American traditional arts and just traditional arts in general?
Oh yeah. It was kind of eye opening. I had seen like Enter the Dragon. Everyone saw that movie back then, right? I can still remember I rode my bike about 15 miles to the next town and snuck into the movie, didn't let my parents know that I had actually gone, right? So it was a long day, 2 15-mile rides on a 10-speed bike.
Things you wouldn't imagine doing today.
Oh God, no. And I was like, I got to learn that. That looks so cool. And, at first it was the cool factor, but then as I started practicing, I'm all about combative, I has to work, and, I want to be able to protect myself, my family, whatever. And, then training with anybody who had experience was way better than I was. They just beat the snot out of me. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And I mean, I had done some really hardcore, like wooden weapon sparring, and we put on armor. Like we used to make armor out of flashing, and we, kind of gladiatorial combat stuff. And we did kind of mellow out when I missed the guy when I was stabbing at him with a metal spear, and it stuck into a tree. And I said, we better calm down a little bit. Right. And then we said, let's how about these wooden things? And we started training with that because I didn't have rattan. Yeah. And then, eventually got more into the FMA side. And I've been doing them, God, since probably 86. I've been pretty fully active in the FMA world. Like
that's pretty early, especially from Northeast.
Yeah, there's not back then. Like I try to tell
California,
people,
okay,
right,
what I mean?
And it was hard back then. It was just like there was not a lot of people around.
It was Marnese. What's so interesting? Like I tell you, I would have never known this if I had not did this show. I didn't realize the presence Marnese had like in Connecticut.
Yep.
Like in Massachusetts, were they kind of
They were the group. There was like anybody I bumped into, especially like when I went to college, they were a Marnese person. There was a couple of people that were JKD guys, but they were from the West Coast. They were going to school where I was going to school, and so they introduced the La Costa, Santo La Costa kind of training. But most everyone I met was practicing something under Remy, and
he got so many of those traditional schools, and it just, I mean, what a genius in the vision he had at that time. It's like, did he ever make it up to New Hampshire?
Oh, not New Hampshire so much, but Massachusetts definitely. Because I grew up in the northern part of Massachusetts, and then I moved up here. 35 years ago, 37 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like I've always had that connection down there, and I used to travel down into Boston quite a bit. Close friend lived down there. We used to go out clubbing and all that stuff. So I would spend the weekends down there, and if there was somebody we could go train with, we'd go hook up with them, And there was a couple of guys like Jim McKay had people up here in Nashua. He would bring seminars up, and So I met like Jim Ingram, kind of introduced me to, at the time, actually, that's when I first met Dan Inosanto. He came to the school there. It was my first introduction to him, and I was just like, wow, this guy is like, he's writing on the blackboard and erasing it with the other hand and, taking notes. We're like, wait a minute.
While doing notes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And, so that really gave me that exposure. And then when I finally really got back into him, like training heavy, it was really into Sayoks, right? Because I was training really heavy with the Sayoks. I was still practicing Pikiti Tertia, but Tuan Leo had, big beef with the Sayoks, and he didn't want me training. And
I remember those, circa 2001, 2002. That's when that got real heated.
Yeah. So it was, back then it was kind of, it was crazy, but it was, the Tuan Sayak wanted me to help him build a web presence too. And most of that was like, Raf and those guys would say, okay, you're going to be the forum guy. You're going to be the head guy, run anything that comes through, you're going to be the one contacting them. But it gave me an opportunity to open the door to people that I hadn't met before. Like, Abon Pat Garamot, Rafi Pambu, and even Tuan Dianaldo and all those guys. Cause he just said, they would write in and I would write back, and we started making some connections. And then when we would have the summer, I would invite him in, try to bring him up, and Tuan would say, hey, go after these guys, try to bring them in. And that's how, like, I met the Atienzas, right? The Tuan Chris wanted me to meet them. He gave me a number. So I called up Tuan Carl, and we were on the phone for a good 2 hours and just sharing stories back and forth, war stories. And he came up, and I had him up at the school with the brothers for a seminar in New Hampshire. And that was probably maybe 2002, 2003.
It had to be. They went public. The reason why I know this is because I had them up in Connecticut, and it was 2002 because I had not moved to my other place yet. And when I became their rep, so it had to be 2002 when they started, like, because the following year, they went to the Sama Sama.
Yep, right around then,
because so 202.
Because it was also right around that time, Ray. I had brought Ray over. And then I introduced Ray and the Atienzas together because they, Ray was at the school. We had the brothers come up and, had some fun. So then we all went to Sama Sama that year too. I brought Ray down to Sama Sama. And so that was, that, like, kind of an amalgamation of all these things going on early on.
There was a lot going on back then. I remember distinctly, man. I mean, it's like, and I just, you had the feud that just started. You had the Atienzas kind of coming out, and then kind of, and with the Saks, you could see the affiliation occurring there. Tuan Ray was coming in with the Karambit. You want to talk about a Brack Pat Kali. I mean, it was like, when you look at the Saks back then, that was a force, man.
I can remember the Hazelton first Sama Sama Hazelton I went to. I think it was 2001. When we had to drive in.
I went to one in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So did you go to the one where you had to drive in a half mile off road?
All I remember is you had driving. You were in a field. I just remember it was an open field. And
we had to drive through a golf course at one point. Don't even ask about that. But, like, we had a convoy of trucks that were lost. So we went to get them, but we had to drive across, like, the 6th hole or something to get back onto the trail. And then we drove out to where we were going to train. And it was probably like 9 o'clock, everyone's kind of leaving, and Tuan's like, hey, just hang out if you want to hang out, we're going to chat, and everyone kind of leaves, and there's like maybe 10, 11 of us left, and next thing you know, like, Tuan Ray comes out and starts doing a demo, and and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes starts coming out, and
becomes infectious.
And it was the way of kind of like, hey, you're serious about training, you hang out and you get more, and he would just feed you until you just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, basically.
It was different times back then. So going back, when you after your initial introduction and all that, you met Tom first, who kind of segued you into PTK, or were you doing PTK a little before Tom?
Yeah, I had just started practicing. I only knew a little bit, and I had reached out to Tuan Leo around then. It was like, I think I met Tom in 98, and I reached out to Leo in 99. It was right around. It was right around that time frame, and And then Leo started going back and forth. He gave me his number. We started talking. He had sent me a videotape, and because he couldn't come here yet, and then he wanted me to represent him here for a while. And then, I started practicing. I wasn't that good. I was practicing the 64 attack, some of the older stuff from like 200 Bill McGrath, like the traditional way it was taught in New York back in the day.
You hadn't come out Tri-V yet, I don't think. Right?
No. He had just started introducing that year. And he sent me all his notes, right? So and I kept asking him, what's this? And I have like reams of paperwork on it. But he didn't do that until right around that time.
I thought it was like early 2000s, right?
Yeah. It was right around then because I think he wanted to separate a lot of stuff too, like from the old school Pikiti that was out there. And he was evolving just like everyone else does.
Yeah, right. For sure.
And, but like, so I was still training with Tom and stuff, and he had no problem with that, but he didn't like that I was training with the Sayaks because that feud had started. And eventually he asked me straight out. He just said, you can't ride two horses. You got to choose. So
Tom was saying this?
No, Leo.
I was going to say Tom. Yeah, right.
No, Tom was fine. He knew what I was doing. And Tom, I love Tom, by the way. I haven't seen him in a few years. And, if I do, it would be just a great reunion again.
I just had him a few months back.
When he goes back down to Mike and May's, I'll probably go down and see those guys again.
He's doing a lot of gun stuff now. And
I know, since I have a range in my backyard, it's not like I can't shoot anywhere.
Yeah, you guys. So with regards to GT, like what did you like about? So before we get into the name, like what did you like about what GT was sharing with you?
Sure,
as far as his methodology and what you were picking up?
I liked at first it was the angular motion, like that aspect of flanking and countering without having to hit directly at the stick all the time, right? So I enjoyed that aspect, and then it was much more very aggressive, like to get in there and fight. That was kind of the mentality that he wanted us to do, right? And I think that's why Ed Davidson and I were like, hey, this is great, we're gonna fight, because we like to spar, we like to hit, and but then when when that was going away and I was training kind of in the forms mostly, like trying to pick up all the old school stuff like the 64 attack breakdown. So, four walls, Daka Punyo, all of that.
Duck up.
Yeah. I enjoyed the flow of the drills, but it was I always have to make sure that, like, if I'm in a drill, I want to make sure that I can make that drill work, right? If it's not going to work for me, I'm not that I'm going to disregard it. I'm just, that's not the technique or the tactic for
me. Where you put your time, where you invest your time.
Yeah. And so then shortly after, Mike and May introduced me to Nene, and he came up, and that man was a machine. He just 10 hours straight. He trained with every single student.
I've heard nothing but just positive things. I mean, I never met him, but
definitely a good guy. And
Tom swears by him.
Oh yeah. I think he was like 60 when we met him. He was about 60, 65.
He's definitely his 80s, right?
Yeah. I think he's 80 now, 80, 85. 85, I think now, right? So it must have been 60 when I met him. And that was just a different perspective, and it was similar, like the attacks weren't the same, but the countering and things were very similar because they were family art,
Yeah, right. It can't be that different. Yeah.
Right. And then they went their own ways. But he, that really opened my eyes about, like, there's a lot of other skills out there that I got to work with. And I became the information vampire.
You just get like, and then before you know it, you're like you're spread out, and you're like, Well, we got a question here. You might have already answered this. You said 1999, but Tuan Bobby is asking, what year did you train with GT?
Yeah, it was right around 99, 2000, 2001. And right at the 2000, 2001 is when we broke ways, And I still respect him. I have nothing, there's nothing personal against this.
It happens.
I enjoy all his routine.
Yeah. So he's also asking, how long did you train with GT?
Yeah, it's about 2.5, 3 hours, 3 years.
3 years.
Three, about that. And there's Ray Floro there too.
I know. What's so funny? The next Sama I couldn't go to
Yeah.
or what? God darn it! It was a Founding One, and who's at it?
Oh, Ray's
Ray,
I love
Ray,
Ray. I
Ray
love him.
Floro.
Yeah. You know, I'll segue into this because he's listening. I don't want him to get too big of a head, right? But so, you know, got introduced to Ray through, you know, forum work and stuff like that. And I said, oh my God, I got to meet this guy. Flew him in from Australia. And it was literally gets off the plane. We go out to eat. And he goes, would you like to spar? And I'm like, okay. So it was literally 3 hours in, and we're at my school at 8 o'clock at night, and we're sparring. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy could just whack me like out of the blue. And
Tell with the clientele.
yeah. And so like it was, you know, we had a great seminar. And he taught me so much, especially like he really honed my non-telegraphic skills, like to like way beyond where I was.
Two of the most non-tel guys I've ever seen. Him and David Gould, just like
it's absolutely. And it was funny because then we went to Sama. I think it was the next year when I had him up again. But you know, he was demonstrating and all that, and I had all these people asking me about, you know, training. But when we started doing the sparring, I walked in, I smoked like 6 or 7 people right in a row. And the whole time you hear Ray in the background with his evil Australian Filipino laugh, just giggling, going, that's my boy. That's my boy.
Non-tel, man. That's right. I don't, it's so, I don't want this to come out the wrong way and people get upset, but I don't think it's worked enough in FMA as a whole. I'm just being honest. It's just like it's like if you're non-tel, or you try to be at least, or you're working towards that, like you could be head just so much, and then you start playing with the fakes with non-tel.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And through Ray, he said, hey, I know you're interested in Kalisa Listrisimo, because that's part of why I started training with him. His first seminar was really about both FFS and Kalisa Listrisimo. And he goes, you should reach out to Mang Romy. I didn't even know who he was at first, until I started doing more research. They can't block it when they can't see it.
That's so true, though. Or they get me so behind. They're late.
They're late. And it's too late. And it was funny because then he introduced me to that, and I got really opened my eyes to like Kalisa Listrisimo and like just the finesse and the skill with the blade that they had. And so I was going back and forth with Romy, and he said, hey, I'll send you my notes, which today, this was in 2003. Those are the notes that are in his newest, the Kalisa Listrisimo manual. And I opened it up and I was reading the manual, and I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly, I have the printed copy there. And I'm like, these are the exact notes.
You got gold, man.
Yeah. And then, and Ray and I were talking about it because he had done some notes from when Mongromi had come over. And I said, hey, can you send me those? And I sent him mine. He goes, where did you get these? I said, you told me to contact Romy. But I had this thing that I called Deconstructing Illustrissimo, and it was me like going through everything saying, excuse me, this is what this means. Like I didn't know all the techniques at first, so I had to kind of learn them and then go back through my videos with Ray and then see other stuff and dictate it out so I could get that familiarity with what the system was really like. And I still love it. I love Kalisa Listrisimo. It's
I'm
fantastic car.
The refinement alone, like I always have something to work towards and refine. Because it's so beyond like memorization. Because there's not a lot. You learn the strikes, the footwork, and all that. But refinement in that, in my opinion, just my opinion, is the potential of the refinement is none other. So no argument here.
No. And that was great. Like when you came up to the symposium, to see you practice Kalisa Listrisimo, and you see me doing something that's very similar, because my art's not Kalisa Listrisimo, but I incorporate those principles and tactics, and it's just the approach of how do we use it, and how do we gain that advantage?
Like, I don't know, did you catch any of the theme episodes when I was doing on KI? If you ever do, just do it, because one of the things that came out of there, and people get upset with me. It's okay, because I always do it respectfully. Like you'll see, and this is just my opinion from doing it and coming and drawing conclusions post interviews with everybody. There's some that are based on like, doing making weapon contact, blocking. Of course, you have to do that in middle range, and no argument there. But then you see some of the others that really stress like no contact, getting before, during, after. And Ray is definitely one of those guys. David Gould, he's imparted me.
Yeah.
Brandon is starting to, pushing that. So when you watch it, like at the end of it, you'll kind of see like who's pushing what, who favors what, and I'm in the middle. You got to kind of be like, you got to be respectful and take, but I absolutely have my alignment with the, with the attribute side,
Right. And this is my belief anyway, right? I've trained for a long time. I've met so many fantastic people out there, and
you met a ton of people, man.
Oh yeah. And and I have. Well, the other thing is I'm like an archivist. I keep notes on everything.
Good for you. Yeah.
And
I wish I did that better.
And one of the things I always think is, for me, every person that you see out there training has an art that they train in. It could be modern East, it could be flow fighting system, but it always comes down to they make that art their own, because not everything works for every body, or every person. So like you gain these skills and you develop them and hone them in your own way, and you're a representation of your flavor of that system.
Yeah.
And my goal is always to honor the people that I've trained with. I never disrespect anybody that I've trained with ever, because they taught me something.
I don't think it's a good idea to do and burn bridges.
No, not at all.
And I can't on this show. I can't be. Yeah, my show would be real. My show would be real popular. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I can, because I don't have a show, So, but like, I mean, everyone's good and bad, right? And I've met when I was training over in Europe, and Ray knows as well too. I was opening the doors for Sayak in Europe, and I was training in Sweden and France and Belgium and Poland and England, and the people you meet were pretty damn good fighters, and then some of them just you had to put the smack on at times, because they were like, well, you're here, I'm going to challenge you, and so especially when you're overseas, you got to be extremely careful, because that happened probably half a dozen times when I was traveling. And that was tough, but and I was always, at the end when we sparred or fought or whatever, I was always gracious at the end, hey, thanks for your attempt. And then don't do that again, because I'm going to hit you in the head.
Yeah.
And Ray would laugh, because I would send him videos and say, look at this one, and he would laugh, and we would analyze. And that's the other thing I like to do is every time I train, I'm filming, and I would analyze and say, okay, this is what I do, this is what they do, this is how we can make ourselves better, and it's just like this. My students, the guys that have been training with me for quite a while, they always go, the vast Lefebvre archives sits on the other side of my basement.
And the Lefebvre archives.
Because I mean, I have a couple of thousand magazines that go back to 73, 74. Books. I have hundreds of martial arts books and articles and hundreds of videos, like thousands of hours worth of videos.
I wish I filmed more. Or I wish I made more of that of an importance.
And it was fun. the ninja in the seminar. Oh my God, that was so funny.
So the ninja in this had this.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah. There's since I was training in ninjutsu, we had some people that were let's say, less than professional, and Ray just smacked the crap out of them, knocked them over. It was pretty fun. But the same thing happened to me in Sweden, where, I was training, and you have to always have your awareness up. And it was at the end of the seminar. There was probably 5 or 6 people there. And there was this gentleman who was a ninja from another school, and he thought I was like a rival or something. And we were drilling, and I said, okay, here, hold this stick for a second. I'm going to do this technique. And I literally just went to talk to someone like that. And I looked, and he just cocked back and chucked the stick straight at my face. I just spun out of the way, grabbed it. And now I'm chasing him across the room with Sinawali, like, until he crashed into the wall and he fell on the floor. And I was like on top of this guy. And then the bodyguards that were there from the princess and the prime minister of Sweden, they like pull me off him. They grab this guy. What do you want us to do with him? And I'm
How
like,
bizarre that he just
what he said to me goes, I just wanted to test you. And I'm like, you ever test me like that again, you're never gonna go home.
Wow.
Oh, that was crazy. It was crazy. And then he came back like the next day. I was like, and then he got his butt handed to him by everyone who was training with him. But that was kind of,
they probably saw what he did, and they're like,
oh yeah. But it was crazy. That's why, you never know what you're gonna meet out there. You
when you meet
good people.
Yeah, I mean, that's wow. So
oh yeah.
So just going back, so when you train with Tom, what'd you think of him, Tom, his methodology?
Yeah, it's so like when I first trained, I went down to his school, and I was working in Boston, so it was another hour and a half from there, and it was
Rhode Island, correct?
No, it was still in Mass then. I think it was Easton Mass.
So Tom had school in Easton.
Yeah, yep. He was. I don't know if it was his location, but it was somebody's school that we went to train at.
Okay.
And then Steve was there, and Steve started showing. Yeah, he began the class, and we were going through Daka Punyo actually. And then Tom came in and says, "Oh, this is Steve Lefebvre from New Hampshire, and he's going to start up a tribe." We started going through all the fundamentals, footwork and attacks.
He was still pushing PTK then.
He still was teaching it, but then he would just branch right back off and go into a mock.
Do you recall when he made the complete separation and just kind of like, "Hey guys, I'm done with drills. I'm just going."
Oh yeah. Actually, I don't know if I have it here. Can't find it. There's so much here. Hang on 1 second.
Sure. Yeah, no rush.
I have his training manual that from his camp was really when he broke away, because we would go up to Campton, New Hampshire. And then he said, okay, I'm going to start really just honing in on a mock. That was really what he was going to do. Mm-hmm. And he had his notebook was all of the fundamentals, the first 9, the 9 layers. And that was like, to me, that was like, oh, wow, and it was all organized, so like we're Western and we like to think that way.
No. I mean, he was, What do you recall about what year?
That's got to be right in that 2002, 2001 time frame.
Right?
Yeah, because I only went to 3 of the camps because they're north of me, and he would have them for a weekend or right on the river. It was beautiful. It was beautiful times. But I met some Sistema guys that were there.
He had to tie with when he went to Russia and stuff.
Right. Mm-hmm. So he had met somebody there that was living in Milford down here, where not too far from where I live. And he came up and was teaching Sistema as part of the seminar too. So, and everything was, camping out. So at night you'd be cooking on the grill or whatever.
Yeah.
But so it was right around that time frame, But but Steve was still teaching Pikiti Tertia because
when they went, I guess that's when they kind of went their own way. Steve and Tom really wanted to be in that.
Yep. Yeah, because that was my first full video of the 64 attacks was with Steve. Because I said, hey, can you help me out? I don't know. I'm missing this little section. And he went through them all for me. I have them all, kind of categorized, and then he would break it out. And that was right in that, like I said, right around 2000-ish, 1-ish, right in that time frame.
That was a pivotal years back then, man.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean?
It exploded. It literally in the 2000s.
It's just, you know what it is? I think it's, when I look back at those times, because they were really significant to me, because I kind of really honed me what I wanted, which was really edge weapons. And so at that time, what's interesting is when I was with the Autenses and Sayaks, like yourself, what I realized is that they really were pushing edge weapon. They really were separating themselves at the time from blunt weapon stick. They really wanted, they were not just using terms Kali and Kalis. But it seemed like they were really, doing that and making a concerted effort to bring edge weapons to the front.
Yeah. And, it's back in 79, I got Mikey Kindness's Black Book. So it was his knife fighting system at the time he was teaching. And I always had a lock blade back then. I lived in the kind of ruralish area, so everybody had a knife. It was not a big deal,
utilitarian, right?
Right, But back then we weren't thinking about stabbing each other all the time, right? But it's when I went into college, I ended up in two different situations. One very early on, I got mugged next to a fairly low income area that was next to the college, and here I am, this big tough karate guy, and this guy jumps out, goes to stick me with a blade. And I go to crosshand parry, I punch him in the face, I knee him, he drops, I kick him in the face, he's unconscious, I kick the knife away, and I start running. Then I look, and I'm like bleeding all over the place, right? Because he had went through my finger and like kind of stuck me on the side of the body a little bit. And so I'm like, okay, I got to get better at this. But of course, I'm not smart, so I end up going and living in that same area for all this time. And of course, throw myself into bad situations. And I had a second attempt when I was about 4 years later, but I had been practicing like more FMA stuff. And this time he pulls out a knife and I'm like, dude, that is not going to help you. And it wasn't like a huge blade. It was just like a 2-inch, 3-inch blade. I mean, it could have got killed anyway, but, and he did the same thing. Like, they slash, boom, goes the thrust. I grabbed that guy's arm. He kind of gave me a little bit of a slash across the shirt, and like opened me up a little bit. And then I just hauled off and just wailed on that poor guy. I mean, he definitely needed some help after that one. Right? And then that's when I realized that the world was changing. Like weapons were coming out. Like this was not going to be, you have to be ready, and and that changed, so then I really got into I have to learn edged weapons and stick weapons and it got me really involved more, and that's how I started learning, through Amok and Kikiti Tertia, Sayak, and Atienza.
I think it was a combination of things. The internet, I think the focus of them wanting to bring edge weapons back, and geographically, it was in our area.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and all that. So I think it was like the planets were kind of lined up in those early 2000 years, and
and it's. And when people say, "Oh yeah, I just do this, I do that," I said, "You don't realize what happens in that moment of combat. Like it's on, and you get Taki Psyche, and everything slows down. Like boom, and that was the thing that probably saved me. To me, it was like everybody was moving in slow motion, and I was moving fast, and I'm like, "What? This is really weird," And what took me like what I thought was like a couple of minutes was actually like 10, 15 seconds in the fight. And it was really strange.
Yeah, your training kicked in, so you appeared they were like in slow motion.
It was and that college, you get alcohol and women and bars, and it was a blur.
A good mixture.
It always ends up in a bad way, and I'm
fun mixture, but not always a good one.
Yeah, true. And I joke around. I think people know, but I weighed about $135, 135 pounds until I was not a big guy, but like I was lean, I was strong, I lifted, and I just didn't like. I was so used to sparring hard, and like I'd get picked on in a bar, and I'd be like, "Hey, whatever," and next thing you know, we're outside fighting with this guy, and it was like, okay, because they didn't have hundreds of hours of matches going underneath them,
or they experience the stress and how to deal with stress, and
then that helped me when I started getting more into like the full contact stick fighting, and like you just get into that zone where you know what it's going to do, what you're going to be,
So what happened? So when you got with Guy and you started creating the pit bull, did they just fade out? What happened?
Well, they did. I don't know if they faded out completely, right? But this was the one thing that what bothered me is I was in Poland, I was in Warsaw, and the gentleman I was training with said, "Hey, we're going to have the Eastern European Pikiti head guy from the pit bull is going to be here," and he says, "You don't know what you're talking about," and all this. I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So I said, "We'll spar. We'll have some fun." Right. So he came in. There was probably about 8 guys at the time that we were training there. And he goes, "Oh, do you want to spar?" And I said, "Okay. Do you want sticks?" And he goes, "Oh, no. We just have these foam pool noodles." I'm like, "The hell is this?" And I said, okay. I said, I'm telling you, I don't want to spar with you because this, I feel like I'm going to probably get you a lot. And he's like, no, I fight all the time. And I just had this weird vibe that he wasn't that good. And so we started sparring, and literally the first move was pow, right in the middle of the face. Like just the noodle didn't even collapse. It just like, boom, his glasses went flying off. And he goes, oh, that was just lucky. And I'm like, that was my fluoro kicking in, right? And then it was the next 15 minutes of me beating him with a pool noodle. And I said, how can this guy be like the Eastern, region Pikiti tertiary pit bull? And he couldn't even fight his way out of a paper bag. And I asked Leo, and he goes, oh, well, I wasn't sure. And I said, but Leo, I thought you were trying to make that like a real hardcore group. But if you just open the door right away, it ends badly. And so we, definitely I was polite to Leo about it. I wasn't arguing with him, because it's his choice, but it kind of disheartened me, and even Ed, I had talked to Ed Davidson. He was out in Detroit area at the time. And so he and I were having a lot of conversations, and it just seemed like it wasn't what we thought it was going to be.
Or was going to, continue to be whatever.
Yeah. Right. And so, we stay cordial, Ed and I stay cordial, but Ed and, Leo and I've never disparaged him. It was just, we had our differences. And so I kind of went on my own path, and, I feel great that I did, because I got to meet all these people, and
it's like,
and we still do. I mean, Bruce Chucknick and, God, there's so many people coming in. Khalito Bonjak. Like Khalito comes into the symposium, never met him before.
I hope he comes next year.
He says he wants to come, and I can't find that video. I have a whole 3-hour video with him. Just
really?
Oh yeah, it was
fun.
Yeah, and he and I had a great time. You meet such great people, Ryan Chamberlain, and just like all these people that do other arts like Serrata, and it just gives
those
you
are
that
all Serrata guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of Serrata, because Bruce, right? Bruce is a Serrata guy under Angel, so yeah, so it was all good to see them, and there's more flavors now in the area, so
which is nice. Yeah. I mean, So when you were both training with Atienza and Sayak, what did you as far as their methods? Let's just start with Sayak first.
Sure.
What appealed to you? What
Sure. So the first piece, I definitely. I'll be honest. I'm not a big drill guy, right?
I'm not either.
I like drills for what they teach you, but again, the drill has to be functional. And so, when they got into their receiving to feeder side back again, so phase 2 type motions, I really enjoyed doing those drills, because that was okay, you're in this locked position and you're punching and you're drawing this weapon out. And, so that aspect of the training to enhance your mental skills was really big. And then the approach of developing the holistic body, like the holistic mind, under Sayak was just a high art to them. They knew how to bring people in. They knew how to, bring in their alphabet.
Marketing.
Oh, and absolutely. And how to teach how to be a better teacher.
Yeah.
That aspect is really hard to learn. And he opens your mind. If you went through, did you go through LOT training weekend? So logical order of thinking was a big piece to the early part.
I've heard of that, but I didn't go through it. No.
And it was a long weekend, but you come out of it with a very analytical approach to how to break down arts and how to break down life. And, but it also opens the door to when do you know your opponent's in front of you? Right? How do you know? And the immediate reaction is, as soon as I see you, basically, because I don't know you, it's basically the answer, right?
When he turns around and tries to haul off with the right hand or something.
Right. And, so that aspect was really high art. And then the ability to add training modifiers. Training modifiers was a huge thing back then. Not everyone went through every part of the training, right? The Katapunan side of the training was not always public. But I see it now more and more, put the shock collar on and, get tased and take a flogging and then do these drills, get withering conditioning, and maces, but we were drilling like that, that was like normal to us. When I tell people that now, they're like, you are out of your freaking mind, you know.
Yeah.
But it brought you out this level where you believe you can do almost anything, right? And they were key at that. And then when I started doing the rudiments of Atienza before it started really doing its evolution side, it was all about combative accuracy. You know, like you had to be moving, you had to be.
Their beginning stuff to me was the closest thing to KI that short than X, long than X. I mean, you know.
And, you know, I look back at my notes from those early days and I started doing more and more, you know, work on that. Like their approach to mass attack. I call it melee, like a melee attack or something to that effect. And it's just, it was pretty much eye-opening, you know. And, you know, back then, you know, we were all friends.
So I hated when they went to the evolutions. I hated it. I hated it. And I was there a year. I just couldn't make the transition of the rawness, which they had in the beginning, to go to these memorization evolutions. And I couldn't make the transition.
And it's hard, you know, and they still have their whole combative aspect to it. Because
and I'm sure they do.
And again, to me, I'm not a big drill collector. I never was.
That's what I just couldn't.
Yeah, and you know, I like the tactical side, and I like to be able to fight with it, and I've seen great people who we used to call them drill fags, right? Basically, because they would just collect drills, and they could do a drill.
That term, I think Sayak came with.
I'm not taking credit for that one, right? But I had met so many people that way, and like I had a guy come up, and he was Rick Tucci's student for quite a few years.
There's a factory.
He is a machine on drills. So this guy comes up and he just goes, here, show me all these drills, and then we'd spar, and he'd just get decimated. Yeah. So I then took his drills and said, okay, this is how you apply them. This is how this works. The drill is only about the repetition side, you know. Understanding the philosophy behind it and how that works in combat is different. You have to apply it in a different way, you know. And then he got it, and then he understood a lot more, you know. But he eventually branched off and went into BJJ, and like he lost his interest mostly because he didn't like the drills after he found out that they weren't effective,
or he couldn't make where he was getting work because of the drills.
Yeah, he had that.
Maybe he never made a connection like you were trying to make with him, and it just was too much for him or whatever.
Yeah, and he came with us for, you know, he went to Atienza in Sayak events with us, and you know, and then we would have privates and training, and you know, and over the years, I mean, everybody fades away. You know, I had my school.
Right. Everybody takes a different direction. Like I'm still friendly with Carl. I was supposed to, matter of fact, pre-COVID, he was coming to Connecticut, and and then of course everything got shut down in May. So, but if he comes back, I mean, it'd be neat to see him again. I mean, we didn't leave on bad terms. It's just
like I was texting back and forth with On Felix, you know, like when you showed me the video earlier, I was laughing because I had just talked to him, you know, just going back and forth. I said, hey, definitely we got to talk to each other. We haven't seen each other in 15 years, and we should catch up. And he's like, oh, absolutely. You know, he's the nicest guy, by the way. His family's so nice. His wife is so nice.
Yeah, he's in Florida now. I had him on a few months back. Yeah.
He's been traveling quite a bit too. So and he's got some great stories, and he's
someone there when he was on. There were the early New York days.
Oh yeah, he was one of the guys. And Ali Alberigo, he's another one that was an early 2 on Sayak student. Like a lot of people didn't know that, you know. He was the other ninja, the New York ninja under Tanamura, and I got to talk to him a few times through 2 on Sayak. And he has some pretty funny stories too, you know. So like training back in the 70s with 2 on was a lot different than it was when we started training.
No. So when did you start with the Sayaks? Like
it was probably like 2008, 2009. I had moved to where I am now.
That's tougher.
Because I live in a fairly remote area in the middle of the state, which is nice. It's beautiful. I have a nice big piece of property, and I have a 40-minute drive into work. So, and it's great, you know. So I like it up here. It's quiet, and I can do whatever I want. I have a small group of students that we train with. I don't publicize that I have a school, you know. I'm actually going to be just in the near days. I have a Facebook page up for the combative side, but I'm going to resurrect a website again, and that way people will see like all the historical stuff we've been posting.
Oh yeah, you got like an actual library. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I'm going to start putting up stuff, and I mean, I have terabyte of information that I've had from the years. I have notes from that Tuhon Gahe sent me of the alphabet of Pakiti Tertia. Yeah. And then Nonoi is in there, Garucho is in there, Rommel Totel, and so I have like all that stuff. I want to stop putting it out there, and then if people want to contact me through that site or through Facebook, they can reach out to me anytime, and it's good because it's that way. I think we kind of like the symposium up here in New Hampshire. It's really about the brotherhood and just having fun.
You're preserving history. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you're creating a library essentially,
Yeah. Because even my son's 25 now, right? So, and he's seen me go through some pretty crazy things, and he doesn't really train, but he goes, "You really got to write all this stuff down, so I have this history someday."
No, 100%. You should definitely be doing that. And speaking of, I think there's no greater time to play that video.
Oh, geez, here we go.
So here we go. Where is it? There we go.
This is when I had hair.
Yeah, I'm gonna lower myself so I'll make the screen bigger.
This was our friendly sparring match that devolved into a full contact fist fight and action flicks attack. And that's just how On Felix is too, by the way. Real intense.
Tell you, I mean that.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was. I thought they're gonna ban it. Tough. I thought that was a beautiful takedown, and then you recovered it into guard. I thought
yeah. Well, back then there wasn't a lot of people still grappling. Grappling had come on, especially from the Gracie side. But like I was never a big BJJ guy. I trained a little bit, but I was a wrestling guy. And one of the people I got introduced to was Matt Fiore, and Matt said, "Hey, purchase this tape or whatever." So he and I were corresponding, and then he goes, "Oh, you should buy this collection of boot camp." And I said, "Okay." So I'm watching it, and like midway through, Tony Shachin gets on, and he starts teaching, and I'm like, "Who the F is that guy? I got to meet him." And found him, got him online, got his number, called him. His wife kept answering, or his girlfriend, or his mother was answering, and he came out and he introduced me to catch wrestling,
catch.
Yeah. And then by that time I had already started some Shuto under Ralph because he had trained with Yori and Dano Santo, and he was teaching Shuto, and then I got catch, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome," and so takedowns and all that were just natural for us to go into. Like for grappling back then, I was doing we were probably doing 20 or 30 matches a week at that point back then.
Now you do that today and like you're in traction.
Oh yeah, God no, I'm old. That's why I have weapons.
What do you mean?
Just have. I get out of bed and I'm like, "Oh, what the hell did I do?"
That's the worst, man. Like you just got out of bed and something is, man, that's a bad day.
Right, I know, it's crazy. But so a lot of history,
Yeah, you definitely have to do that. Like I'm sure people would really appreciate if you.
I have a nice timeline one that I did too. So that'll be the first one I put up. Hasn't been updated in a while, but it starts back in the early 1900s, like the first real recording of like organized training in the United States and Philippines, like being taught and the book coming out, and then it just goes chronological, up into about 2007 or 8, I think is when I stopped taking additional notes. But
Yeah.
I'm going to bring that back and put that up there because
Oh, you definitely have to. I'm sure people would love to
oh
check
yeah,
that out.
and it's just a work in progress. People will add to it. Like I sent it to
Yeah, right. People send you stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
Garamont, like Pat Garamont, I sent it to him, and he's like, "Oh no! We have to add this in there. We have to." So he added a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
and,
before you know it, it's gonna just blow
yeah,
up.
yeah, and that's what I want it to be. So
Yeah.
I'm working on the site now. Should be up in like a month or so, and then
Mm.
that'll start housing all that information, and then people can help me fill more into it, like
Yeah.
almost like a wiki page in a way.
That'd be awesome. So so let's get into your, like, when did you create, like, when and why did you create your own system?
Oh, sure. So I've always had because I trained in so many different things, I always had like my own art. Like back in the day, you remember Count Dante, the Black Dragon Fighting Society. I have notes that actually have that at the top typed in, right? So, and so I started, I was training with Art of Combat, and then I said, this isn't me. I want it to be who I am and who I want my students to be. Like they can take the name and use it for whatever they want. So I came up with combative concepts. And out of that, I said, okay, I really teach three things. I teach this unarmed kind of combative side, hard kind of compact. And then I said, I have this Filipino stick and blade kind of art, and then a short blade art, right? So I said, okay, I'm gonna call the Filipino side Juego Todo, which just means anything goes. And I said, I wanted to keep it as traditional as possible, so I used the term eskrima, which is still the most probably Anise and eskrima are really the most popular terms in the Philippines. And so I kind of coined that in the late 90s, 2004, someplace in that range. And it's, I have all my notes on that. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to formulate this. This is how I teach, so we bring people into that. And then we have Havoc, which is like the short blade stuff, which is the combination of all the stuff that we've gone through and like the fighting and the, like the combative aspect to it and concealment to draw and all of that. And then everything pairs together, right? So if a skill set's in one piece, it flows through all of them. It should not be any different. Like if I'm practicing firearms, my firearm draw is no different than my weapon draw. Yeah, it's the same exact thing. And
before you have like 15 different things, and you're
like, right. And then it's just broken.
Yeah.
And then we pressure test everything. So like if something's working, it stays. If it doesn't work, if it gets evolved and just
sounds like JKD to me.
They stole that from me. So and then it was just my expression to that, and it's not and I didn't want to diss anybody by being part of their art, and then them not seeing that I'm my own person too, right? Because I train with everybody. I have no problem with that. One of the funniest stories I have is when I met Ray, he has CASE, CASE, copy and steal everything, and I said, let's make this a little different.
So my sub art is called CASE.
Yes. And, it was more like replication. Like if it works and it works for me, why don't I pull that in? Does it blend with everything? It's not like a stand on its own type thing. It has to be part of us, right? So we bring people in, we teach them what we call our alphabet. And so they have our common language. And then we kind of morph them into how we do our tactics, right?
That's funny, CASE.
Yeah. I can see Ray chuckling there, but oh my God, I still use that today, right?
But I didn't steal it. I haven't returned it yet.
Right. And it was like with you, right? Like you were doing techniques from Calisi Lustrissimo, and like you were working off an Australia movement. And like I don't practice Australia per se, but it's very similar to what we call a shaving parry. And it was like I started using the way you did it. I started just naturally adapting that into how we fight, and everybody's like, well, isn't that what Dean was doing? I'm like, yeah, but it's no different than this. It's the same. And he just moved different.
Hey, you employed the sub art of CASE.
There you go. See? But that's like my goal now is, and I've done just an incredible amount of research on learning and teaching and athletic movement and how to make people better than they are, like in the way that they can teach it.
Yeah.
And even my students now, I say, I don't teach to a beginner. I'm not teaching to a beginner. I'm teaching you to be a master teacher so you can teach your students. Right. And so like
nice.
when they're practicing with me, I'm telling them, this is how I teach. I am teaching you so you can replicate that with someone else.
With somebody, and you can carry it on further.
Yeah. And those are all getting hard coded now. Like I am documenting all of that so that I can give my students this information and like, hey, here's our teaching philosophy. Like, how do you do this? And because a couple of them are instructors in other systems, and they go and they go back and they tell me later, but oh yeah, I used this technique at the school the other day, and then okay, how did it work, and how did you bring the student through it, and so then they dissect it and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that,
Okay.
So it's just a different way of trying to improve people is what I like to do, right?
So within the realm of your system, what systems do you primarily draw from?
So primarily, I would say you're going to see multiple things, right? Like on the non-telegraphic, just near impossible to stop kind of motions, I really honed in from flow of fighting system, like those aspects, and the burst, like how fast can you travel 6 feet, like without stopping? Like, it's just remarkably fast. And then from the Sayak and Atienza was like the melee type thing, and then the introduction to the philosophy of teaching and understanding and learning through those guys. And then at the end, it's like I like to add like the Khalees piece to it. And the one other person that I will say, and I only had a brief couple of hours with him, was Master Rafi Pambuan. That man I could not believe how he moved. And it changed my whole Espada y Daga game to like just another world. I just said,
kidding. Wow.
Oh yeah, when we get to meet again, I'll show you some video clips and you will go, it's just amazing how he moves. And then when you work with him, like just a little bit, and you like, what the? He came to Sama Sama. I said, I got to meet this guy. He signs my book and all that stuff. And then he goes, oh, you Steve, you're this guy, blah, blah. And I was working with Ray. And he goes, yeah. I said, and then his senior student says, hey, let's play. And we start training. And I had already watched him. And I had already started like just adapting to it and like the movement. And his senior student was having a hard time with that because like, he goes, who the hell are you? I've been training with this guy for years, and now you're able to move,
Where's he located now?
He was down in Florida. I'm not sure if he's still. Yeah, he used to be right down in the Orlando area. But Ray Dionaldo had trained with him. And you'll see it in his system as well. And the Espada Daga piece to me is what changed the way I looked at the puzzle of Espada Daga, right? In a Sinawali in general. Sinawali to me is not about two sticks. It's not about like just swinging in a repetitive pattern. It's really about attack and counterattack in a continuous flow, right? Yeah. Because you have one weapon that's a shield and one weapon that's attacking all the time. And how do you get that to work?
And the marriage of them too. And harmony. Yeah.
I know Joe Robilio is going to place some videos up that he did with me over the last couple of years at the symposium. So when that comes up, you'll see some of that because I don't film when I'm there usually.
Oh, I would like to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to do some with my students too, like the rudimentary pieces so people can see it and then they'll understand like how we transition people to that. Right. Because it's not the Cadena Real stuff like, like the Sinawali kind of flow. This is about like, okay, I have a long and a short blade. I am not getting too close to you at first, because I don't want to get stabbed or cut. How do I apply that? And how do I make that work?
It's not easy.
No, it's not. And I love it. I love Espada Daga. It's like
it's so perplexing to me. Just, the possibilities, just the endless.
Oh, it's a giant puzzle.
Yeah,
giant puzzle.
It's like, and you want to talk about like a lifelong ambition. I mean, it's
Yeah,
I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy. That's one of my aspects that I like. I think everyone has one of their favorite things.
Yeah, I think so too. That's definitely on top of the list for sure. So those are kind of the core systems you pull from.
Yep.
What do you stress to your students as far as like their journey, or what do you try and instill in
Sure.
them?
Sure. Like I think first is that bridge, right? Like everybody comes from some place in knowledge, and you need to be able to have this common language so that you can both equally train, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
my number one strike is this, or my number two strike is this. This is how we do a strip, like all of that. And once they understand that, like really well, like they get it, we introduce them to what we call combat set. Combat sets are 6 techniques, and all they are is a bridging gap, like a bridging technique for Engano, basically. And it has multiple phases. So like the basic technique just teaches you like a horizontal strike, downward vertical, and return, right? Just seems like a real easy motion, but like that horizontal strike is a bait. As soon as they go for that cross blocking motion, you do punny pass, right? So you can slide right down that inside.
Right down their barrel. Okay.
Right. Or they miss, I miss, and then they're returning a strike. So my carry back is almost like a reverse Australia.
Oh, Sun Kit like? Or
yeah, Sun Kit, like Sun Kit, right?
Okay.
So, but like in the beginning, a beginning student doesn't want to know that at first. They want to say, does this work in sparring? So they go whack, and then they try to hit. But then that next phase is really about them bridging that basic and understanding that it's all these other pieces in there. It's all about Engano, all the strategy, and how do we make these things like very deceptive.
That's a whole nother thing too, I think, is generally when I see a lot of these guys spar, the lack of Engano use.
Yeah. Well, it's because you're going to fight. And so why? Like I try to say, like right now we're training inside, but we'll train outside as well, or on the stairwell or whatever. And I'll say, all right, so you're fighting in a safe environment and you know that I'm going to attack you. So yeah, it's really easy for you to just be the rhino and charge me, right? Because you know. But if I'm hitting you repeatedly on the head with a stick, a hard stick, and generally I don't carry a rattan stick in my car. I carry a collapsible or something, right?
Yeah.
You're not getting up after to the second hit or the third hit, Yeah, an action flex allows that to happen, but then that changes their game. They're like, oh, wait a minute, I do have to move. I can't be. And then all of a sudden we'll throw in that second partner. Like, okay, now it's 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. Yeah. And how do I get out of this? And what happens when I'm pinned up against the wall? Do I have another weapon? Can I use that other weapon? I might have to deploy. I might be doing tactical sparring of some type, like scenario sparring. I'm armed. I don't have my weapon out. He's attacking me. Now I have to stop that for a second, get my weapon and deploy, and then go fight. Or I might have had to pick something up off the ground and do it, So all of that gets thrown into the mix, and it makes it much more like real, And then you can have guys pushing you like, hey, get fuck in there, get in there, because you're trying to get away and it's a small space. So, you're like, I can't get out. And then all of a sudden someone's pushing you, and it ramps it up pretty quick, right? I call it the other part is like, I train a lot, so I can bring a person up in speed, right? So like I can say, we're going to start this technique slow, but I'll just keep increasing the pace and keep increasing the pace, right? Until they get uncomfortable. And then I just back it down just a little bit, right? And I call it the vortex because it's like a whirlwind, bringing a student up. And then when they don't feel like they can control it anymore, you just bring them back down to where they feel they're in control.
Where they're back in control,
Yeah. And then you do that repeatedly and watch how good they get. Like fast, very fast. And and it takes a lot from you because as the instructor, you have to have.
You have to be definitely for observation.
Yeah, and you got to make sure like how far did you push it?
Yeah, how far to go before you lose a student.
Right, and that works out really well. So those are kind of some of the things that we do and the philosophy, and we're definitely a multi-range group. Like if I'm fighting a middle range fighter, I can go close. And they might be like, they don't know how to handle that, like a Balintawak type style way. Or, hey, that guy's really good and close. I'm going to back off and play my long game. Right. And that's like a Kalisa Lestrissimo specialty, like floating between those ranges.
Yeah, right? That hybrid long, medium.
Yes. So that's kind of like where, what we do. It's not different than anybody. It's just different the way we do it.
Yeah, just the way you approach it and how you package it. Yeah. How do you introduce gradually incremental stress inoculations where you don't overwhelm your students initially?
Yep. So generally, I mean, like in a typical, just say a typical learning environment, right? I'll say, okay, today we're going to learn this basic, right? Whatever that tactic is. It could be something really simple. It could be something moderately simple. Everything is simple to somebody, right?
Yeah.
So say, like, I don't know, we could use any kind of augmented block. I'm just using an augmented parry type motion. But from there, I say, okay, this is how we handle it on a one side. This is how we handle it on a two side. Then we start training, mix up the opponents so that everyone's getting going. And then I say, okay, now I'm going to start demonstrating. So I'll have them attack, and then I start to demonstrate. And then I go faster. And then until they're attacking me like fast, and I'm doing those same techniques in a variety of ways. And then I stop and I say, okay, so did I do it always the same way? And generally it's not, right? Because you're in the flow and things start to change and the energy changes. And then I say, this is the reality of that situation. And then I do it to them and push them to that edge and say, okay, you don't feel comfortable anymore, do you? Like this is that basic tactic. And this is then how okay, so once they get there, then I say, okay, now this is how once you get to that point, you've defended, this is your immediate counter. Like this is how you counter him so he's not coming back to you to do the number 2 strike, right? And then it becomes almost like a tactical game. Like I attack, boom, and then they have to counter and stop me and prevent me from doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, so, I think that's so important to introduce to your students, but not to where they actually can have potentially a negative impact on them, and you're in a room and you start out your stress inoculation, turn the lights off and yelling and screaming and running around. I don't know. That might not be the best way to go about it. I'm just saying,
Then my PTSD kicks in and I'm all done,
Yeah, you know what I mean? And
and that's again, it is learning and teaching is an art, right? So you have to understand, especially when you're probing in someone's mind, like the sensitivity there, because you don't know what's in there. And you got to, pull out what you need to get them to.
Yeah, you don't know what you might be unraveling.
Right. And uncovering the good and bad together is good, but you have to control that bad side, right?
Yeah.
And again, it gets to and the positive reinforcement part is important, because if you negative to them, like you suck, they're done right there 3 times.
Oh yeah, No.
Yeah, and so you gotta, you say, okay, that's not good. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And they, good technique. Oh yeah, that was good. And then you bring them up. And then you go faster and speed it up and then bring it back. And the students do great. I have a relatively new student who teaches outside, and it just opened his eyes. Like he goes, I've never seen the way you teach it. I've never seen that before in all these people that I've trained with. And he's a JKD guy, so he's trained around.
Okay.
And I said, no, I appreciate it, because I'm trying to, like I said, I'm trying to teach you to teach, not just to fight, all the time. Because, we're older. We don't all want to fight anymore, but we want to impart our knowledge out there,
Sure. What's your ranking structure?
So basically there's just a certificate for different levels, so about 7 levels that are out there. Most people are at like 4 or 5, and it's only because most of us don't care. And I just never gave out any more certificates.
I ran out of them.
Right. And basically like a testing is a process, right? So like they have to understand everything, have to be able to apply it, have to be able to explain it and teach it. And then it has to be theirs too, right? It can't just be mine. I'm not one of my students. He's just I call him the tank. He's just a block. He's a huge guy, big muscles, but he moves like that, and I can't move like that, right? So, but he takes my techniques and he makes them work in that same structure. Yeah.
Wow, right on. So as far as your teaching, you're primarily like have your place there?
Yeah, right out of my house. That way, like, because some of these guys, we've been friends for years. There are times where we'll do a class, and then like I have a big piece of property as well, and we might go do additional work out there, as well as we could go on the range, because a couple of them are some pretty serious firearms practitioners. So we'll get on the range for a while and go through some drills there. And it's nice because I don't have to worry about it. Like people come in, they train, they go home. I don't have to go anywhere. I'm here.
Yeah, no, none of that low overhead. I mean,
Yeah, no overhead. Yeah, love it up here.
It's can't be that. I mean, that's
yeah.
How do you gradually introduce them to sparring, like without them getting overwhelmed and where it's a negative experience?
Yeah, so generally, their first introduction to sparring will probably be with me directly, right?
Yeah, it's always a good decision.
Yeah, right. Because I try to keep the egos out of the way. Let them hit me, let them get, show them what's right, what's wrong, and then we ramp it up. And then over a period of time, usually about 4 lessons, 3-4 lessons like that, we start mixing it. So like people will train with others and spar with others.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Because then by that point they're inoculated and it's with gear or without, and depending on what we're going to do, targeted sparring, non-targeted sparring, full contact, whatever. And it could be with other weapons too, right? So like we might have aluminum trainers. So like we might be doing sparring with aluminum, and you definitely got to have some body armor on, right? Because take a whack across a finger, you're cracking a knuckle open, breaking fingers. Or head hit, you're bleeding all over the place. So we generally train with modicum of gear because it keeps it real, but then you also have to be able to push it a little bit. So you do need something.
No, definitely. So then, what do you got as far as so what's the future of you? Like, what are your future goals as far as yourself, training, future systems you might want to test out, play around with? See,
yeah, there's so much out there. I think as you and I both know, we're going to be traveling, right? So we're going to be doing the FMA invasion, right? And I think that for a long time I didn't want to get right back out and publicly teach and travel and stuff like that, do seminars, but I always did the symposium because Terry and I have been friends for 30 some odd years.
I mean,
and but this was a great opportunity to get you, Mike and May, and Dr. Tim and Ty Botting. And I think this has some serious legs. And, I'm looking forward to the Connecticut trip. And
I think so. Yeah.
I think that's going to be my next adventure, like really having some fun again, getting out there. And
now that we're beyond that, so that's, I think what's first one, October, right? I think
I think he put it out for the 15th, I think, right around
that. Sounds familiar. That sounds right. October 15th, and I think it's at Dominic's.
Yeah, I think it's at Dominic's.
Yeah. That should be fun.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a good time. I think that's like really my next adventure, and hopefully get to meet a lot of new people. And I'm actually thinking, because we're friends with Dr. Tim, maybe get into the modern East world more and understanding the system more. Like I've only practiced a little. I don't know much of it.
Same here. I don't claim to know.
Right. Yeah. And it would be good, right? It'd be good to be able to use the same languages he's doing while we're teaching together and stuff. So, I think over the next year or so, I'll probably be reaching out to him and doing more with that.
Yeah, might as well. I mean,
yeah. Why not? I mean, what else we got to do?
I know. Well, not that, if assuming the FMA invasion goes well, you might just be, you just might be exposed to it anyhow. Just like him and Ty, doing it and all that. I'm looking forward to it. Like, what's funny how it came about is I put a post in the FMA discussion, like I'm considering like taking FMA discussion on the road. Like we would go there and just host events. Like it would be central and there, and then Datu got hold of me, and I'm thinking like, what, this might be an easier way to go. Already established guys, maybe do this first and see where it goes. So but and then it looks like maybe one at Mike and May's. I'd like to get one because I think it'd be neat, like just doing the immediate area first, like maybe one in the city. Jersey
might be good. So I mean, I think we have it really. I think this will be an awesome opportunity to have people get exposed to other arts, right? And as long as people are understanding of that brotherhood and lack of that ego piece, it will explode. It'll literally explode. I think it's going to be, and Mike and May, myself, we all we all get along. We all love each
Yeah,
other.
there's definitely no.
No.
Yeah, you
No,
couldn't ask for a collectively.
Well,
Better.
except for that guy Dean, but
I know,
we accept all types. He's there,
I know. I'm on a trial run, so
Yeah,
if I make it
we're
in
still testing you.
October,
Still testing you.
yeah. Man, I know that's funny, but yeah, I hope it works. I think it'll work. I think it's the right. I think we got the right kind of people.
Oh yeah.
I think we're sending or the right reasons for doing it. I think the community will see that.
Yeah.
And like you said, the ones who don't generally, they're probably ones you don't want there anyhow. Probably,
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and I think that's what's going to come out of it. Really, I really do. I mean,
yeah,
it went over so well at the symposium, as you saw, and
I thought it did.
oh
Yeah,
gosh, yeah.
that
I
was
mean,
well received.
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know like you were kind of shy at first, but you got right into it. By the end, you were like right in there with the
I know
rest
in
of
the
us.
beginning, man, I'm just thinking like, these guys are known. I'm from the state, man. I felt like
no.
running into.
and you did a great job, So and it showed, like, especially when we did the very end piece where we're all just kind of feeding off each other too. Hey, do this and do that, and but that really showed like we all clicked. Like you could see it. There was
definitely harmony. I definitely felt that.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like, there was.
Nope.
Yeah, definitely. Greg Mason.
Oh, Greg.
Who's that guy?
Another one of those, Datu guys.
Yeah,
can't trust him. Can't trust Greg.
And he's a Canadian too.
Oh God, not that.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I really do. I think this could really build. The momentum. I think could really will continue.
And I think the other thing you see is like, since with the community that is exposed to us so far, they're gonna travel. Like they'll be there with us. They'll be
we'll have like a groovy bus.
Yeah. It's probably the only way we'll get students to show up is that we have to pay them. But
hey, we got 100 people here. I mean, don't worry about the loss.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah, and like I told Tim, to me, I'm at that point now. It's not about like the money piece or anything. It's just about let's get in there, have some fun, and and I think it shows when we get together. And like Tim and I have been friends now for several years.
Yeah, like it's definitely not about the money with him, man. That guy travels like 7 hours, and he's not getting a ton.
Oh yeah,
He leads by example, and that I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So.
Yeah, what he does, tell you what he does. Like he, by far, I've seen him give people opportunities like none other. Like he has got that none other. Like like what he's done for me. I mean, other people. I mean,
it's fantastic.
And
like he and I had bumped into each other through mutual people. We hadn't met and trained or anything until I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. But it was like we became good friends right at the first seminar we ever trained together, and it was like, wow, this is awesome, and we joke with each other all the time, and
I more and more, I tell you, I'm developing more and more respect, admiration for him, what he does.
Oh yeah.
Really, I tell you, and in the beginning, people would said negative things to me about him, and I'm glad I just found out my own.
That's what you have to, because I've heard all kinds of things about everybody, and and then when I talked to Terry and he said, "Oh, Dr. Tim's coming up," I said, "Oh, you know what? I've always wanted to meet him. This would be a great opportunity." And I just went in, and he and I clicked, and we've been friends ever since. So,
it's gonna be great. So, and any final closing thoughts for the wonderful FMA community? The
non-political? Not political. So, there are a couple things I want to say. Is first off, Dean, thank you for everything on this show. I love listening to it. I really thank you for the opportunity coming on.
I'm glad to have you on.
I know you and I know each other, and most people don't know who I am because I've been kind of underground, and I prefer it, to stay kind of underground in a lot of ways. I want to thank all the people that have, made comments, and people that, coming up and saying stuff. And to me, that everyone who's listening to this show should always take away is FMA is about a brotherhood and sisterhood out there, that we're here to train, to support each other, and be able to kick ass. So not everyone can use a weapon, but some of us can do it
Hey,
really well.
if we want to get this art like up there as recognized as MMA, BJJ, traditional arts, we have to work together.
Yes,
So,
yes, absolutely.
yeah.
So I applaud you so much, Dean, for doing all this.
We're trying, man. I'm telling you, it ain't easy, man. Pimping ain't easy.
Yeah. True.
I know. It's true.
I'm not making enough on the side.
I'm telling you. Man, well, it was a pleasure. Well, it looks like I'll be, if I don't, I'll be seeing you in October. So
okay, absolutely. And then we'll get in touch beforehand anyway, and maybe we can do something.
In the library when you get that going. I definitely, I would love to check out your site and your library. So when you get that up and going, broadcast an FMA discussion.
Okay, yes, I will. Absolutely will.
Charge people too.
Gotta make millions.
All right, brother. It was a pleasure having you on. Appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you, Dean. Have a great one. Peace out, everyone.
All right, bye. All right, folks, that wraps up 302. Who is next? Friday, we're doing with Marco. We're going to be doing one on the unfortunate passing of Guro Steve. He represented Guru Dan and Sound Blend, and I believe he also Guro section of KI. So we're going to get Marco on here, and we're going to speak on his behalf, the family that he's left behind, and the event that we got coming on Sunday, the joint seminar doing Marco to raise money for his family. So that'll all be posted, FMA discussion, and interview. So check that out. All right, folks, as always, thank you, and we'll see you guys next time.